Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag Podcast with me, your host, Freddie Hall. Again, a little lonely here this evening. Only myself, Adam, Andrew, Ash are all elsewhere occupied this evening. But I've got great company nonetheless, because I've got a great guest tonight in Josh. He's going to be joining us to talk all about the Cleveland Browns pick at 26, which was Greg Newsome II, the cornerback. Getting towards the very end now of the Future of the Franchise series. Thank you for all your support over the summer. Football is only a couple of weeks away. I mean, the madness of the NFL London games tickets has happened in the last couple of weeks. A hot topic, I'm sure, one, but maybe we'll cover at some point. Did you get your tickets sealed, Josh? Are you going to be down in Tottenham?
I'm hoping to be in America for that. I've got tickets to Browns Broncos. I'm just waiting for Biden to open the gates. But yeah, I gave my season tickets to my pal, who eventually got them through about an hour and a half after it opened. So all good.
Well, mine was very smooth sailing, but I admit I was one of them idiots that got in the queue at like 9, and everyone was like, I thought it was open at 9:30 or 10. I was like, come on, there's like hundreds of thousands of people want to go. Like, just be, come on, get yourself together. Yeah. Go and get the tickets there.
Well, wake up, get on the site.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's been such a sore topic and such an event that everyone wants to go to in the NFL UK community and overseas as well, if they're allowed to come. But yeah, just get on the site, get going. Looks like tickets are still available. Myself in the Franchise Tag Bunch, as well as I'm sure as the full 10 yards bunch, which you're part of, as Josh Henwood is the creator of Believe Land Brit, which is a Cleveland Browns discussion page, topic page, also a writer and podcast designer for Full 10 Yards as well. Good friends of us over here at the Franchise Tag Podcast. So I'm sure you'll see the full 10 yards bunch. Ourselves, the whole Franchise Tag team's got tickets to both games, so we'll be around there. I'm actually a 15 minutes cycle away from the Tottenham ground, so it's going to be a very short, drunken commute home for me. I think I may be able to walk it, but given how the NFL games usually go, it'd probably be better if I stick myself in a taxi at that point. But we'll see. I mean, me and Josh really should be bitter rivals. I mean, a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, a Cleveland Browns fan. I found out just before we went live, actually, though, he is a Villa fan, and I'm a Villa fan as well. So,
there we go.
Though we are worlds apart, we are so alike all at the same time, Josh.
Yeah, all good. Just stay away from you on Halloween, I think. Apart from that, we'll be all right.
Well, yeah, we've got lots to discuss tonight. Obviously, we're going to be starting with Greg Newsome II. We'll probably go into talking more about the Cleveland Browns. And obviously, both of us being supporters of AFC North teams. We'll talk about the AFC North as well. Very hot division this year, as we can imagine. So, Josh, a long time ago now, the draft, April, I saw you do a mock draft of the full 10 yards bunch, which I thoroughly enjoyed. You picked Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, the linebacker, who the Cleveland Browns did pick in the second round. You said you liked Greg Newsome in the second round, but the picks were swapped in real life and they took Greg Newsome in the first anyway. What was your reaction on the night when Greg's name gets called out and he becomes a Cleveland Brown?
So throughout the entire night, on the full 10 yards, we actually did a live show and I was engaging throughout, even though it was stupid o'clock. And they're going, JOK still there. JOK still there. We're going to get, what? But in the end, after the dust settled and all the rest of it, I felt very much like Raiders fans must have felt when they were able to get Morig in the second round after indescribably picking up Leatherwood in the first round, where both players are actually good in first and second round. Just it was puzzling as to which way around they were. But it was a position that we purely needed cornerback. It was the sensible decision. Andrew Berry goes sensible first, not flashy. The cornerback position has been a sore need for us for quite a while, and he is he's someone who is going to fit into that defense really well, I think. So no, as the dust settled, great pick. Just on the night, I was very sore that we didn't pick up my man JOK.
Well, sensible but not flashy is definitely a topic we'll talk about with the Cleveland Browns later on, because it seems to have over the last few years has completely switched around from being the flashy franchise that has maybe made silly picks and made silly mistakes to be flashy. but is now becoming more sensible and more level-headed, and has really got something going on. And I'm very worried as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. But more about that. Well, yeah, exactly. It's been a long time coming. More about that later, though. So with Greg Newsome, 21 years old from Chicago, but he went to Northwestern's first team All Big Ten in 2020. I mean, Northwestern only conceded 20+ points twice all year. Really solid defense. Admittedly, not in the strongest division in football. 71 total tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1 interception, 20 passes defended, and 1 fumble returned in his career at Northwestern. What impressed you most about Newsome?
So it's definitely the passes defended from all of that, because he doesn't make flashy plays. He's not that kind of cornerback. He's not the one that's going to get you a lot of interceptions, even though NFL media decided to play his only interception constantly again and again when actually talking about him. It's definitely the fact that he is a man-to-man defender. He will follow defenders round. He recognizes zones well. I think he led the Big Ten last year in passes defended, of which is so huge, because if you can get that from a CB2 or a CB3, as he might be starting out with, to have someone that is passes defended first, because if you're not CB1, then you're going to have more passes thrown to you, but it's going to be against lesser wide receivers. So that is exactly the kind of profile cornerback that you need. And that is definitely what is, that's what pricked my ears up when I started reading more about him.
Yeah, if he can slot into that CB3 spot behind maybe Denzel Ward, Troy Hill, or Greedy Williams, wherever the depth chart goes, having that guy that can just break up the plays. It's not always about the interceptions, is it, in NFL, really? Sometimes it's just breaking up them plays, being a nuisance on that edge against these high-profile wide receivers, or the wide receivers that aren't as high profile but manage to get the yards in. How do you think Newsome will adapt going from a small, no offense to Northwestern, but a smaller school, let's say, in not a massive division? How do you think he'll adapt into this defense? Because it's an already very young backfield when we talk about the guys we just talked about there. And it isn't an impressive defense with a lot of big characters on that defense. How do you think his game will adapt from the college into the NFL?
So I think a lot of people overstate the transition from college to NFL from that sort of aspect in terms of how will they fit, because I think it's definitely more if you've got a plan and the player fits into the plan, it's going to work really well. Joe Woods must love this pick. Joe Woods wants players that will fly over the field, stick to men. He likes man defense, of which I was crying out for more last season, but he didn't have the actual parts to make it work. He's going to a dime defense as soon as Delpit's healthy. And I think that he's going to be that plug-in and play player that will, he will match his assignments. He'll be asked to cover, the second or third wide receivers, maybe the tight ends. He will end up being the guy that they will look to in order to provide assurance almost. And that is what Joe Woods loves, having a shutdown corner that will, just be reliable to break up the passes. I don't worry about his mentality. His mentality is very community driven. That is Cleveland all over. Cleveland already loves him. Cleveland loved him from day one. I mean, he got drafted and he went to a Cavs game the next day. And, straight away he felt at home, and he's already started taking part in so much. So I think he's very integrated into the city already. And also having a young backfield, that just means he should be able to slot right in. Because if there was experience, then, he might feel a little bit outside looking in, but, realistically, he should just be in with peers there.
Well, it also means you've got a unit that will, you would hope, stick together for at least 4 years, and cohesiveness is one of the biggest things in the NFL that I don't think people talk about enough. We talk about it with things like the offensive line and stuff like that, but any group in position, the NFL, the cohesiveness is the biggest important thing. And you look at like the Seahawks, their Legion of Boom, that was the cohesive unit. They were Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, Rich Sherman, them players, they were cohesive because they played together for a long time in that Seahawks team. And if you could have that point too here. I think in Cleveland, it is that good. I believe anyway. We talk about the positives though of Greg Newsome. What do you think his weaknesses were at Northwestern?
So the first thing, and this is something of which I think plagues every single player in the backfield for a Cleveland defense for probably the last 5 odd years, the reliability to stay on the field. He played 18 games throughout his college career. He has had problems with injuries. And to be honest with you, that's just something that you're going to have to deal with. Hopefully it's just a case of being unlucky. The fact that he was able to show enough on tape to get picked in the first round shows that there is talent and potential there. Just a case of needing to stay healthy. And then in terms of his actual gameplay, he's not the quickest. So he makes up for that by being more aggressive. Works if you're being a tip for tack man-to-man defender that's looking to break up plays, and that's why he has the passive defender that he does. I get the feeling though he's going to draw a few flags. That's definitely the worry.
And I think with Greg Newsome that he was outside of that like top 3 that everyone talked about with J.C. Horn, Caleb Farley, and Patrick Surtain. There was like this underbelly of other cornerbacks who are really good, and I feel like a lot of the talk was that Greg Newsome was the top of the pile of them guys, but this guy is just below them top three guys. I know Caleb Farley dropped because of injury. Patrick Surtain, J.C. Horn obviously going in the top 10. I mean, would you have liked to have maybe moved up the board to have targeted one of them bigger name corners? I mean, in all honesty, not to be rude, it's been quite a while since Cleveland Browns have picked outside of that top 10 mark. And I know you have in the last few years, but obviously you were usually expecting to get one of them top 10 guys coming out of a draft for many years with the Myles Garretts of the world and Baker Mayfield and players like that. Did you think there was going to be any movement by Cleveland on the night to go up and get a more of a name, or even maybe you've moved down, actually, if they were thinking they did great with getting JOK in the second, maybe they could have dropped down and got equally a really good corner in the second round as well. Are you surprised there was no movement?
No, not really. And that's just because that it feels like a very typical Cleveland front office move to stay as to where they are unless a deal comes around that's really going to work in their favor. That's why they jumped up to get JOK in the second round, because they saw that there was a chance to get, well, who I thought was a top 14 pick, let alone anything more, for JOK by just moving down 3 picks, I think it was, in order to get him. But in terms of moving up in the first round, I mean, I can understand it, but how much are you giving away to move up maybe 10 spots? If you're looking at JC Horn, you're looking at moving maybe 15 picks. That's a lot of capital you're going to have to give up to go 15 picks. And if you got a guy that you like with the profile, maybe they did reach to get Newsome. I think that they reached maybe by a round or 2. In some of the guides that I read, including the 14 yards one, they had him down as a 3rd, 4th rounder, which I think is a bit too low. But they probably reached for him. But if they like the system, like scheme, and it ended up working in terms of what they wanted elsewhere, by the looks of it. So all fair play to them. But no, I don't think that they were gonna. I didn't think they were gonna move out. And I tell you what, it was lovely. I was actually able to watch a draft, think, I don't know who we're going to get for once. I don't know where we're going to pick. I'm going to enjoy my beer here. And it's 3 a.m. and I still don't know who we're going to pick. And it's 4 a.m. and I still don't know. So, yeah, it was lovely for once.
Not as tense on the shoulders when you think it's going to be this guy and it is going to be this guy, and whether you agree with it, whether you disagree with it. And having that notion of mysteriousness around the pick is always good fun. I mean, the Steelers.
Hey, it's good when it's not a quarterback.
Well, even better. I they get me started on quarterbacks of the Pittsburgh Steelers, my man. We'll talk about that later, I'm sure. With this pick now, when you look at this backfield, I mean, Denzel Ward, Troy Hill, Greedy Williams, Greg Newsome, Ronnie Harrison, Grant Delpit obviously didn't play at all last year due to his injury. John Johnson, you brought him in, which again we talked about the fancy and the more level-headed pick. I thought that was one of the free agent signings of the offseason. Personally, I thought I rated it so much. I hated it so much being a Steeler fan and knowing that I'm going to have to come up against him twice a year. And you look at that name, and I think when you read them names, you could argue this is the best young secondary in the NFL. Would you agree? I mean, the only thing I would say is when I did look at the stats, they were not as good as I thought they were. Now they're right. It's numbers on a piece of paper, I admit. I think there's a lot more to come from these guys. And like you said, there was health issues last year. Grant Delpit didn't play. He didn't have Josh Johnson there, admittedly. Ronnie Harrison, I believe, only got traded midway through the season. I can't remember off the top of my head if he was there at the start.
No, I
Greedy
think he
Williams,
was, but I think he was injured at the start.
And Greedy Williams was missed a fair bit of time as well.
Yeah, he had a shoulder injury all season. Williams did.
Yeah. So if these guys all do stay on the field, do you think this is the best young secondary in the NFL?
I mean, young secondary, yes. So, it's about staying healthy. I don't trust us to stay healthy. That's the thing. Williams is always going to have injury issues. He's had injury issues all the way through camp as well. He's been kept off with all sorts of different things. Ward is always going to have a game or two where he's likely to hobble off. I can imagine that Newsome's going to be the same. But what I like now is that there is more depth in the secondary. We had no depth last year. I mean, we were having to rely on Andrew Sendejo to be our strong safety. And no. I mean, employee 23 got a hell of a lot of berating on Twitter and everything else throughout the season because I think he had a total of 0% passes defended. It was that bad. So I think it's definitely most improved. I think it's probably top 5 in terms of best young secondaries. In terms of defense entirely, I'd say top 10, simply because they've not got the depth all the way around. The defensive line's fine, but if Garrett or Clowney goes down, then there's issues immediately. And Garrett hasn't done a full season yet. He's always missed a few games for injury concerns or other matters, shall we say?
Well, we've both signed old defensive linemen this year. You've had Jadeveon Clowney, we've had Melvin Ingram. Melvin Ingram looked really good the other game. Actually, I was quite surprised. But
yeah, that was one I hated you for.
I have zero confidence about him staying on the field. I don't think he'll go for a full season. No way.
No, but the impact he will have, Jesus.
Yeah, he is some player. But Jadeveon Clowney, an impact player as well. I mean, equally, both of them guys. That's going to be really interesting to see for both our teams. Is having that new older vetty player come onto the team and seeing what they can do, because a good season for the Steelers or the good season for the Browns for either of them players could totally revitalize their career. And not revitalize, because that sounds like they've had a bad career, but Clowney's not lived up to the hypes of being number 2
Clowney
pick.
needs a big season. Clowney needs a big season because the last couple of years he has circled the drain somewhat. I think that's probably not harsh to say. And
he's been in the shadow of Watt as well. He's been in the shadow of JJ Watt in Texans for a long time.
Yeah, so I think he really needs it. And Ingram's one of those that I always look at as a name and think, wow, Melvin Ingram. You know, he's but the paper never stacks up. So, you know, I think that he needs to be able to make the paper stack up.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, moving on from Greg Newsome, let's talk about our franchises because we are linked. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate you for last year in the wild card. I am not one of these Steelers fans or these diehard fans that is aggressive or anything like that. I was actually like, wow, good for the Browns. Like, we didn't turn up. We got found out. You were better than us. I completely was happy to see you guys go through in a way, because when you look at that team, being a Cleveland Brown fan now, Josh, this must be the most excited that you've been ever as a Browns fan, because you look at this team now. All right, Baker's a QB, but the team's not running through Baker. But that's okay. I think you just need a guy who can throw the ball pretty well and is mobile in the pocket at times. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, best 2-punch in football, probably. You got a wide receiver unit of OBJ if he can stay fit, Jarvis Landry if he sticks around as well, Jarvis Landry. Who else is there? Donovan Peoples-Jones looked decent last year. You're
going to see him explode this year as well. You really are.
Yeah, I really like him. I think he was on the Michigan Spartans All or Nothing on Amazon. I'm pretty sure.
He must have been. Yeah.
He was, yeah. Because when he got a reception like one of his first receptions in the game for the Browns, I was like, oh, that's the guy from Michigan. Like, I remember watching that and remember his name and everything like that. But I don't think he was like a 6th round pick from what I remember.
He was a late 6th round pick, and everyone was clamoring for him as well. It's like, oh, gonna get DPJ, and I was one of those that was like, oh yeah, I actually watched him in the one college game I watch a year, and like, yeah, he would actually be pretty decent. And since that Cincinnati game where he caught the buzzer beater to complete the comeback, I think that kind of set in motion that they could trust him in big moments, and he has gone to show that. And I think that they're going to give him a lot more this season as well.
And you've got Austin Hooper, Harrison Bryant, and then that defense as well. Like I said, with the secondary, Myles Garrett on the line, Jadeveon Clowney on the line. I mean, what is the expectations for the Cleveland Browns this year? Really, what would you target as being a successful season? Obviously, the playoffs, but we've also got to be realistic. Is it going through more to the playoffs? What would be your expectations?
So I'm going to answer that by going backwards. I am going to look at last season, where regular season wise, I think that we had the ghosts of the last 20 years where, there have been some seasons where we've been close, but then completely messed up towards the end. There have been the 1 or 2 sparks. And then there's been the promised years of which ended up flat on their face, the constant changes, this and that. So I think that last year was all about being constant, having a plan in place, sticking to that plan, and getting into the playoffs. I actually think that getting into the playoffs was the bigger moment it was the bigger of the Steelers games in December. January even. So, just getting there was big. Beating the Steelers at Heinz Field was then another thing, because that shook off another voodoo curse of which we seem to have. Don't do well at the ketchup ground. Then I think we should have beat the Chiefs in that division game.
I could give you some of it.
So momentum shifted in that second half. Momentum shifted, and I think we choked more than the Chiefs won it. And then if you beat the Chiefs, I think that we could go toe to toe with the Bills. Personally, I think that us and the Bills are relatively similar. The only difference is the offenses are wired differently. Of which I think that would have been a much closer championship game. And then we probably would have got blown out against the Tampa Bay Bucks anyway. But in terms,
but at least you got to the Super Bowl.
Well, exactly, yeah. So I actually think that based on the way that the playoffs ended for us, that there is no reason why the Super Bowl shouldn't be the goal. Especially now that we actually have a defense. We had the 28th ranked defense last year. For I think that was for points allowed and yards allowed. There is no way we're going to end up with the 28th worst this year. We had to outscore teams last year. Hopefully we can start dictating games this year. So, yeah, I think that the Super Bowl window is open. But if you were to ask me as to what I'd be happy with, it would be another playoff win at least. I'd like to be in the divisionals again. And I'd like to at least not be considered massive underdogs against someone like a Chiefs or a Bills, because I think that we are at the table, albeit not at the head of the table.
I think there's a fair argument to say that you held your own against the Chiefs. Don't get me wrong. No. I think it is with people like the Chiefs, it's just that much more quality in every area. And I actually think against the Bills, I'd argue the same. I think Josh Allen's a far superior quarterback. Stephon Diggs is a far superior wide receiver to anyone you have. Running backs, but Stephon Diggs is far superior to OBJ and Jarvis Landry.
But then it's only 1 versus 2 then, because you can mark Diggs out of a game if you focus on them enough.
But you didn't have your best secondary players at the time.
No, that's true.
And also, your running back's way better. Don't get me wrong. Defensive lines, yours is better. That is the one weakness of the Bills is their defensive line. I think people like Jerry Hughes and stuff like that it's not working out. Hence why they're going to take Gregory Rousseau.
Yeah.
I do think their secondary is very underrated. Though
it's
we
underrated.
know, we know like Tre'Davious White's incredible corner and stuff like that. Like Justin Poyer, Micah Hyde, they've got some good depth in there as well. There is a lot of good, and that. It would have been a really fun game. Like either way, it would have been a really fun game.
I feel like it would have been more fun than Chiefs Bills because I feel like that was more of a mismatch almost. I feel like the Chiefs have their number.
Yeah, and I also feel like every game that the Chiefs plays in that sort of playoff spot now is like, well, the Chiefs are going to win this.
Yeah,
there's no like, what if they maybe you never know. Yeah. That was it. Like the Super Bowl was great. Don't get me wrong; it was amazing to see Tom Brady and the Bucs do that. And to see the crumbling of the Chiefs was even better for us AFC fans anyway, because they just dominate the division.
Oh, yes,
but
it was fun.
But we still went into the Super Bowl going, well, this is the Chiefs' Super Bowl to lose. Like it wasn't. I think there was discussion. I didn't. I thought Tampa would put up a fight, but I thought the Chiefs would win. I think. It's hard in the NFL, you know. Like I did some predictions the other week, just because we were just thinking about it, about like how the divisions will end up. And I sent it to the group chat, and I just got decimated. And I was like, I don't know. Like some of these games are just so tight now, and some of these divisions are so tight now, and you just don't know what team you're going to get in there. You look at some of these teams on paper. For example, the Vikings is one of these teams I find anyway. On paper, the Vikings are really good.
Yeah,
but they're
terrible when they get on the field. Yeah.
Oh, they can be so bad. Their defense can be so bad. And sometimes their offense just doesn't get going in games either. Dalvin Cook doesn't get going in some games, and sometimes the receivers don't get going. And it can be a bit, and some teams just outscore them. And I just think there is such fine margins now in the NFL. But what I don't love at the same time, the Steelers, is the AFC North was a division that has been... Steelers dominated it. Ravens then come up above us and then started to, with Lamar and doing really well. Now you guys have entered the fold. We can't forget about Cincinnati with Joe Burrow, because that could be anything could happen in Cincinnati at the minute. I don't think I think both of us would happily admit, looking at them games, going, I really just don't know how it's going to go at the minute, because we just don't know what that team's going to be. What's your predictions for the AFC North this year?
Oh, so I'm trying to think back now. We did our AFC North pod only a couple of weeks back.
Well, it's a couple of weeks back. It's okay, mate. You've slept since. Yeah, I can allow you to.
If only that was in the notes before, and I could have brought it all up. No, so I've got the Ravens and the Browns at, I think I've got them at 11 or 12 wins each, and I think that pretty much the North matchups between each other will be very close. I think the Bengals will end up on the worst side of all of them, just because they're not ready yet. I think given another year or two of building up, and the Bengals will be right up there. I just don't think they're there yet, and training camp does make me worry about Burrow and Chase. Simply because I am definitely one of these people that will die on a hill saying that they should have drafted an O-lineman rather than Chase. But I'll be proved wrong in 3 years' time after they've drafted some more O-linemen. So I've got Browns and Ravens at 12 because they've got easier schedules as well. Pittsburgh did not do themselves any favors by winning the division, which means that you've got the toughest schedule. You've got a quarterback that I think is starting to show his age now. I don't think he's aged anywhere near as gracefully as the others in his age bracket. I see you I think I've got you at 8.5, sort of 500 just above. Because it's more because of the fact of your schedule. Your schedule's really tough on you.
So tough. I've not been very favourable in our AFC North matchups either. I've been very negative about them, to be honest.
I've got you losing both to the Ravens. I've got you splitting one with us, and I've got you splitting one with Cincinnati. I think. Can't remember.
I think I've got us losing to Ravens and Browns twice. Splitting with Cincinnati.
Splitting. Jeez,
Yeah.
you're like
I've
me.
been really
You're a rather
negative.
negative. You're a negative homer.
I feel like we've lost. I think there's age. On both sides. I don't trust like Joe Hayden. The cornerback situation's a bit bleak. It's only really Minka Fitzpatrick in the backfield. Terrell Edmonds, not Tremaine. Tremaine Edmonds is the Bills. Edmonds. We've got the other one.
That's right. You got the other one.
He's not been amazing. Defensive line's got weaker. O-line's weaker. Big Ben, I still trust in him. Like, I'm okay with him, like, looking a bit older. Just was people complacent about us just throwing the ball short and like just getting slow lads up the field. I'm okay with that. If that keeps you healthy and that wins us games, that's fine. Yeah. I'm obviously buzzing about Najee Harris. Like, I was
that's going to be your
so happy.
Yeah, that's going to be your big piece. Is you're actually having a run game. When I saw that you drafted Najee Harris, I was like, oh, why? Why do you now have a run game? That's the one thing you didn't have, and it was the one thing we could count on, was just forcing him to pass. But no, that was the best move that you could have made, because of the fact that I think that you're going to have to stop making Ben pass 60 times in a game, because it's just not good for him. It's not good for him. It's not good for you guys. You know, the turnovers will get worse. I think that you're actually lucky with how little turnovers you had last year. And you'll be able to keep it down now because you can keep them guessing with the run game. One guy on your side that I would still be pessimistic on is Juju Smith-Schuster. I think that he's got this season, he needs to prove himself, and I think that he ends up being, I think he's your WR1, I think.
And he's not.
Yeah, and he's not a first wide receiver. And stop dancing on logos. I know it sounds. I know it sounds like a trope, and I know it's got to be boring to hear. But he danced on the Steelers' own logo after a preseason game. I mean, why? Why, man? Just get off the TikTok and play football, and just stop talking to reporters. The whole same old Browns thing. I know it was probably taken out of context, but why feed us that when we're already feeling down before a playoff game? Just give us everything, you know. Yeah.
I would like to point out this is the Browns saying, this is the Browns fan with Baker Mayfield on every single advert in between every game every week. Is you've already had one Money Manziel, and now it's Money Mayfield. Exactly.
but at least that's scheduled. It's all in the summer. It's all very out there. You know, he doesn't have to focus on it on the game. You're not exactly going to get an opposing player going, hey, those progressive ads, don't really need them, do we?
Well, if we've learned anything from Josh Henwood tonight, he is a firm traditionalist. We know that. Well, Josh, really appreciate you coming on, my man. Where can we find all your stuff on social media? I know I believe Lambrit is your Cleveland Browns page, but where else can we find your stuff?
Right, so get ready for the long list, because I'm pretty much everywhere. So for my Cleveland stuff, at Cleveland as you can see, my personal stuff, of which I've talk more politics than I do football, but hey ho, at J Henwood 92, and then for the full 10 yard stuff, at full 10 being the number yards, there you'll see pretty much everything, and we're going to be putting on a hell of a lot this year. Revamped site, new guide out. It's all full blazing and loving every minute.
Well, definitely go check that out. I know that you can get the full 10 yards guide, I believe, with a discount code with the franchise tag. You have to go find that on our social media, because I have not got it wrote down.
I know it off by heart because I'm the one that put it on the site. Yeah, if you go to full 10 yards, click on the black banner that's got the guide, the digital guide you can get for $1 off with the code TAG, TAG.
There we go. Josh knowing more than the host of the franchise tag. That's I should have been better prepared, Josh? Thank you. You've had my back there, my man. Fellow Villa fans. That's why we always have each other's back. Apart from on the NFL some days. Enjoy go into America if it all opens. I hope it does, and I'm sure you'll have a great time there. Fingers crossed for you. Yeah, thanks for joining us again, Josh. Thank you for everyone who supported us this summer with the future of the franchise series. We have got all our main shows coming out very soon. We're having a very, hopefully, a good staff meeting tonight to try and work out how we're going to do everything in the season. But don't worry. Content's coming out. We're going to have a lot of fun doing it. We're going to be at the Tottenham games, like we said. Hopefully, we'll be doing some stuff there as well. But if not, we'll just catch you and maybe have a beer with you and just chat some NFL because that's what we love doing. Until then, have a good rest of your week. Keep looking for the tickets if you haven't got them already. I'm sure there's lots of people selling them. There'll be more near the time, so don't panic and don't have a go at each other on Facebook because it is just annoying. Panic. Just take it, put him in disarray. Don't listen to me. Until then, have a good rest of your week, guys. See you later.